I noticed that your daughters are helping you tremendously organize your schedule.
They do, and they work and answer. They're trying to help answer the couple hundred emails I get a day that are pretty wonderful and intense that talk about people's journeys and how the book's impacting them. And then I've got a son, Nicholas, who's down in California helping Brad ship books out of his garage and a couple storage units still. and I've got 6 kids, and along with Kim, this has become a very much of a family adventure, and that's part of the beauty of what's happened.
Now, when you wrote this for your children, what was their reaction when they actually read it? When they did they comment to you? What did they do?
Each of the kids has responded uniquely, but very positively. Because they're different ages and they've had different levels of conversation about these things anyway. And so some of the kids, there was very specific pieces of the story that impacted them greatly. And one of my daughters recognized that she was Kate. I didn't even tell her she was Kate, but she saw that that's how she deals with stuff. She buries it down inside, and that opened up a huge conversation. So,
yes.
Every one of my kids has been impacted by the story. My family, personally, my brother and my sister and my parents, the extended families on Kim's side and my side.
Little did you know,
ripple.
Yes.
Well, and I'm very glad I didn't, because then I would think maybe that I had something to do with this.
And this way you don't. Now,
my favorite quote about the book comes from a guy named Tyson who just graduated from Oregon State, and he said to my daughter Amy, who's 20, he says, "Amy, this book is so far beyond your dad."
That's how you know it's a God thing. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Now, specifically, are you going back into what's happening with the shack? Are you going to be? I heard kind of reverberations about movies. Have you?
Well, see, Bobby Downs and Brad Cummings were involved with that kind of the part of the vision right from day one. They saw this book as a potential screenplay. So that's always been on the back burner, but it's coming toward the front burner now.
I bet it is.
Yeah, but it's not being rushed. And even people in the studios, and there are a number of studios who are very interested, they're helping us guard the integrity of the story.
That's
We're
huge.
not wanting it to be messed up and lost in some kind of a quick Hollywood production or a low budget level enterprise that loses the integrity of the story. So there is just a huge amount of care that's being taken surrounding the whole concept of putting this into a film.
That's so important, particularly where there's such a beautiful message.
Exactly.
To do it sloppily would be it would damage what incredible work has already been done.
And we want the creative control in terms of being able to say, we are not willing. If we are not going to do this right, let's not do it.
Yeah.
And it's not about the making of the movie. It's about, again, walking in the presence of God and seeing what He wants to do, and then being
and
a part
honoring
of it.
Him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, how does the great sadness come into play? I thought that was a great way to describe depression.
It because it was such a companion for me for most of my life. That was not a difficult stretch to go find that particular, almost a character in the book. And
it really was.
Yeah.
Now, where did that come?
It comes from my own history. It comes from trying to survive as an abused child, as a religious performer that hides everything. You end up living a life totally alone, and then with the losses that you experience and the dreams that disappear and the hopes that seem to be shattered and all of that, the great sadness just becomes a way of describing where you end up. And I know that in terms of the losses of things that are precious, that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And you find yourself wrapped up in this, and it sucks the colors out of life, and it's a heaviness, the garment of heaviness, as it were, and it just became again, part of the metaphor for what life experiences are like when you are lost in them.
That's why it was so authentic. You could tell that you had experienced a great deal of the pain and the suffering and the sadness to write about it so authentically. It was just, you did such a great job. Now, what was the most, this is kind of a tweaky thing, I'm just curious, what was the most interesting fact that you've learned while writing The Shack, or the release of The Shack?
There are so many ways that I could answer that question.
I know.
I know. As far as in the story itself, I mean, there were certain things that just were stunning that I hadn't even put together before, pen went to paper, and but happened in the midst of the process itself. For example, there was a line where Papa says to Max, you human beings are so lost, you don't even understand that freedom is an incremental process.
Yes.
Well, that blew me away. I mean, it put together a whole bunch of things that I thought about for years, but had never been crystallized in a single sentence like that. I'd always thought of freedom as being an event, and then wondered why I wasn't free now that the event has taken place, rather than beginning to understand that freedom is part of this process of coming to wholeness, and with God heals the soul, the human heart, from the inside out, and he does it without shame. And so that freedom is just a slowly opening flower, as it were, and that was a huge thing for me. So there were tons of little pieces like that. And then,
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that this book crystallizes. It really does, not only the sadness, but it crystallizes our understanding of many things on many levels, which is why it was such a I think that's why it's been taken and just, it's developed exponentially, way out of anyone's control. And
that's a good thing.
Exactly.
I was telling some guys this morning, I said, I used to know what God was up to, and I used to tell everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
He redefines it at those moments, usually.
Oh, I don't have a clue anymore. I am just thrilled to be a part of this, whatever this is.
You're just along for the ride, huh?
Exactly.